So the topic we're discussing is that it is impossible to serve God when you're depressed, when you're sad. Joy is one of the ways that a person has to serve God in. And last chapter we discussed maybe there's some problems, maybe sometimes a person has a problem when it comes to family, when it comes to health, when it comes to sustenance. What he has to do about it? We discussed that last time. And also we discussed sadness that comes because if a person doesn't feel he's good enough. And we discussed last time that it's pretty much a narcissist way of thinking. You're not thinking about how to connect to God. You're thinking how bad you were. Or we gave an example, for example, last time, that if a husband wronged his wife in some manner, then he comes over and he asks for forgiveness. And he tells her, I am awful. I don't understand why I did this. I'm such a bad guy. I can't believe myself. How could I behave such a manner? Notice there's one thing that he's not doing. He's not addressing her pain. What is he addressing? He's only feeling his pain. I'm a bad guy. It's a narcissist trait, and we have many times this narcissist trait when we're dealing with God. We're thinking about, oh, poor me. Now I need to feel sad because I went against God. Okay? So we discussed that last chapter. This chapter, we're in chapter 27, page 117, middle of the page, or page 116 in the English, I think. So again, the goal is that a person needs to have joy in all areas of his life. So let's start. Perek Chaf Zayin, chapter 27. Ve'im ha'atzvut eina mida'agat avonot. What happens if a person wakes up in the morning and he's sad? He's not sad in the narcissist trait that we discussed last time. Oh, poor me. I'm such a loser. That's not his sadness. That he took care of. And we discussed how to take care of it. It's okay to feel sad, but you decide when. And there's an allotted time every day before a person goes to sleep. He can take a recount of how his day went, and he can do tshuva. He's allowed to be sad during that time, but immediately after that, he has to have joy, even after the sadness. Why? Because the joy comes from the fact that you have a plan how not to sin again. And if all you do is just say, I'm a terrible person, and you don't come with a plan, then you're still coming with the narcissist traits that we discussed before. So this we already solved. So this guy, he said, it's not mida'agat avonot. It's not because he's worried about his sins. Ella, you know why he said? Because he's been a religious Jew, or a religious person, or a human being. It doesn't matter where you're going to take it. For many, many, many years. And he notices that he's a lowlife. You have a desire. You have desires for things you shouldn't have desires for. You see your neighbor's wife, and of course you're not going to do anything with the neighbor's wife. But you look good. Hey, I like what I'm seeing. And you expect that maybe once after a couple of years that you work on yourself, those desires are going to disappear. And they don't disappear. The person is still the same animal he was his entire life. Instead of getting excited about doing commandments, he gets excited about physical pleasures, where it is food, where it is wine, whiskey, women, casinos. Those things excite him. Doing commandments? He does them because he needs to, but it's not as exciting for him. Ask me, when was the last time my eyes opened up when I prayed Shacharit, or when I got my new iPhone? Where was more excitement by me? Well, the truth is, I've been a religious person for many, many years. I've been studying every day for many, many hours, but I get attracted to these things. So this is a legitimate thing. I am not progressing. I am the same old person I was 50 years ago, maybe even worse. Mihirurim ra'im. So what is it concerning me? Why am I sad? Because I'm still a lowlife after all these years. I have bad thoughts, ותאוות רעות, and bad desires, שנופלות במחשבתו, that they fall in my thinking throughout the day. You know how many times, he's new here, so he never heard me talk this way, but do you know how many times rabbis or priests or people who are dedicated to God, I'm not talking about someone who's not dedicated to God, someone who's really dedicated himself to God, do you know how many times a day does he have bad desires? Can't count. Hundreds, thousands. Throughout the day. And he's been working on himself throughout his life, and it continuously throughout the day. There's no improvement. What am I doing here? What did I come to this world for? If I'm not connecting to God, I'm still the old me. So now he's going to divide these bad thoughts into two sections. Sometimes those bad thoughts come during the day, and sometimes these bad thoughts come in the service of God. They will come in both places. So let's continue. Hine, the first type, im noflot lo, if those bad thoughts appear to him, shelo bishat avodah, not when he serves God. Those bad thoughts are easy to come. You know when? When you want to concentrate on God, you know what you're going to be concentrating on? The evil inclination is going to come and says, no, don't think about God. Hey, think about this. You don't have enough money over here, and you wanted a better car over there, and the neighbor's wife winked at you the other day, and you're remembering it. And so bad thoughts are going to come during prayer, during studies, to interrupt you from those. Those are obvious. But over here, we're not talking about that. Over here, we're talking about you're at work. You're doing whatever it is work-wise. Nothing to do with godliness necessarily. It's the regular day. אלא בעת עסקו בעסקיו, when a person is busy with his regular day, ודרך ארץ, and his regular life, וכהי גבנה, and similar things. So it says throughout the day, I'm supposed to be a person who's supposed to be a little bit elevated, who's supposed to be spiritual, who's supposed to be this. And you know what I'm thinking about all day long? I'm thinking about things I'm not supposed to be thinking about. You want me not to be sad? I should be sad. Look, I'm 58 years old already. Shouldn't these thoughts get out of my mind? Shouldn't I get excited more about doing commandments than I get about physical pleasures of the world? It makes me sad. It sounds like a legitimate sadness. Right? So the Alter Rebbe says, you're wrong. Even that's not a legitimate sadness. So he says the opposite. Completely the opposite. Adrabah, it says completely the opposite. Yesh lo lismoach. He has to be joyful. Joyful in what? So the answer is joyful in the fact that he's a low life. That's not a joyful thought. What do you mean? How can you be joyful that you're a low life? What does that mean? שיש לו לשמוח בחלקו, he has to be happy in his part, שאף שנופלות לו במחשבתו, that even though those thoughts all the time drip into his mind, הוא מסיח דעתו מהן. He pushes them away. So what? But he's doing a commandment. Which commandment is he doing? לקיים מה שנאמר, to do the commandment of what it says, ולא תטורו, and you should not stray, אחרי לבבכם, after the desires of your heart, ואחרי עיניכם, and after the desired, and after your eyes, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, that you, I don't know how to say the word zonim in English. Prostitutes after them. You prostitute yourself after those thoughts. Yeah? This is the Shema. Now, let's understand what he's saying. Just over. You know, we discussed before, you have righteous people. You have righteous people. You said you should be happy you're not righteous. See, you said that you're not righteous, right? A person is said that he's not righteous. Why is he said? Because all day long he needs to struggle with the thoughts that comes into his mind constantly, and he feels like a low life. So the Alter Rebbe says you should be happy. He says, you know why you should be happy? He says a righteous person should be sad. She says, why should a righteous person be sad? Because he doesn't have those desires. So he says, so what if he doesn't have desires? So he says, a righteous person doesn't have 365 ways, because there's 365 negative commandments. He doesn't have 365 ways to connect to God that you do. A person like us can connect to God not only performing the positive commandments, the do commandments, he also connects himself to God in all the do not do. See, a righteous person never, you know when you talk to someone and he irritates you and you are about to give it to him, whether it is verbally, whether it is physically, and you hold yourself back because you know that God doesn't like it, it's not the proper way to do, you just did a commandment. Which commandment? Don't go after the desires of your heart. You just perform the commandment. See, a righteous person will never perform this commandment. He's not able to. He never has a desire to do wrong things. You know, every time that the thought about the neighbor's wife come into your brain, you push it away. You know what you just did? A commandment. You just connected to God. A righteous person would never connect to God. He can't. He can only connect to God where? On the positive commandments. A righteous person doesn't have the opportunity to connect to God in all 365 negative commandments. He never has the desire to.
So we got double opportunity.
More than double. 248 to 365. There's 248 positive commandments, the 365 negative commandments. And by the way, think about how wild it goes now. The more times you have desires, the more opportunity for commandments you have. It goes exactly the opposite of what we would think. You thought until now, the Alter Rebbe says that the more desires you have, the lower you are. The Alter Rebbe says you're not looking at the situation correctly. The more opportunities you have to connect to God. Every time those desires come, now you have an opportunity to push it away, to do the right thing. Don't succumb to it, God forbid. But you have now the possibility to push it away.
So that's what you pray for? In some ways, is to have these challenges constantly.
Very good question. We're going to discuss this. The entire question, the entire chapter is going to discuss what you're asking right now. So we're going to address it. So according to this, maybe you should ask for trials and tribulation. We don't ask for it. Yeah? So we'll have to deal with it. In the next, when it says in Shema, in the Shema prayer that we pray every day, do not go astray after the desires of your heart. Do not prostitute yourself after the desires of your heart. Who is that talking to? It's not talking to the righteous people. The righteous people don't have the desire of the heart to go astray. As we mentioned, their desires is always to serve God. They don't have desires to go astray. It doesn't exist by them. They don't have the evil inclination. So the Torah is talking about whom? About us. So now he's going to address this. ואין הכתוב מדבר בצדיקים, when it says do not go astray after the desires of your heart, do not prostitute yourself. ואין הכתוב מדבר בצדיקים לקראם זונים, to call the righteous people prostituting themselves, God forbid. Who is he talking to? אלא בבינונים. He's talking about people like us. כיוצא בו. Regular people like us. People who might... Remember what a Benoni is. A Benoni is what the world thinks, an intermediate person is what the world thinks a righteous person is. A Benoni is a person who never sinned in his life and never going to sin. Any sin. He's not righteous. Why is he not righteous? Because he has the desire to sin all the time. It's not like he doesn't have a desire. He has a desire.
But you can move from Rasha day 1 and be a Benoni day 2. Through a tshuva process.
Yeah, a Rasha is somebody who sins. A Benoni is someone who doesn't sin.
Right, so, but let's say I sin for X days. Then I have a come to Moses moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, what was I doing? And then, people like, I don't know what you did in your teens. You were not keeping the same commandments as you do now. So something happened.
Why, am I a Benoni now?
I don't know, I think you are.
You think I am? I know for sure I'm not.
Okay.
There's no question.
You have the potential to be a Benoni.
So I should. So,
you're not Rasha all the time.
so how much more? So how much more so I should be said according to this? Because I'm as the Rebbe supposed to be someone who doesn't sin, and I look at myself and I find myself the entire day, not only the entire day desiring sin. That's one thing. Many times throughout the day I do sin. I'll give you an example. You're not my priest, but but there's many examples that throughout the day I sin. Many times. Do I ever get snippy with my children or with my wife when I'm not supposed to? Many, many times. Do I, many times when I'm supposed to do something, do I always do it right away? No. Sometimes I even forget to do it all together. And we're talking about commandments. It doesn't happen once or twice. It happens constantly throughout the day on many occasions. שנופלים לו הרהורי ניאוף במחשבתו. This is a person, like the Benoni, who has thoughts of going astray in his thoughts, and sometimes the thoughts of going astray can be on two levels. It can be, he's at work right now, and instead of doing his work, somebody is paying him. He gets paid by the hour, let's call it. And the person who pays him by the hour expects an hour work out of him. And instead of doing work, he looks around the room, because he can be busy at his work, and he decides, why don't I think about the neighbor's wife? Maybe I should think about it. And he spends the next 10 minutes thinking about the neighbor's wife. This is called the Rasha. What's the difference between him and a Beinoni? A Beinoni has the same thought come to his mind. Exactly the same. There's no difference. But as soon as he recognizes the thought coming into his mind, he pushes it away. Let me give you an example. This is Tucson, Arizona. It's not New York. And in the last 10, 20 years, it wasn't so bad. 30 years ago, he wouldn't know. Yeah. But 30 years ago, it wasn't so bad. You would drive your car over here 30 years ago in Tucson, Arizona, and you would see a woman jogging down the street. 30 years ago, she used to be dressed. 30 years ago, the woman used to be dressed. Today, they're not dressed. Maybe they're wearing a bra and some panties. That's it. That's it. That's the way they jog today. It became. This is the way. This is what the world is today. So this is the difference between a Beinoni and a Rasha. A Beinoni and a Rasha, an intermediate person who never sins, and a Rasha, both are going to have, when they drive the car, both are going to see that woman, both are going to get in some manner, it's going to talk to them, and this is the difference. And by the way, the Rasha also pushes her away from his thought. Yeah? But there's two ways of very good. There's two ways of pushing her away from his thoughts. The Beinoni, immediately when the thought comes in, this is a nice shape, pushes it away. So I shouldn't be thinking about it. The Rasha, what does he do? He says, I shouldn't be looking at this. This is the difference. And he's not looking at it afterwards. But you saw the difference? He says, I shouldn't be looking at this. A Beinoni immediately, when the thought comes into his mind, pushes it away. So notice, a Beinoni and a Rasha are the same guy. They're not different. They're only different in actions, not in who they are. They are the same guy. Their action is different. Their behavior is different, not the level of the person. The level of the person is the same level. I will even go forward. You can have a Beinoni who has more desires throughout the day than a Rasha. Some people, some men, are not interested in ladies. They have other desires. So the Beinoni is going to be looking at hundreds of women throughout the day and pushes the thought away. And this guy is a Rasha. If a woman will have to throw herself at him for him to do something. Yeah? Just looking, he's not going to be thinking about it. But he is not going to stop himself from sinning. The Rasha, the wicked one. He's going to go for it. It's the mindset. It's the same person. One decided he's not going to sin, and one didn't decide he's not going to sin. So either those thoughts come to him, to a Beinoni, forbidden thoughts. What do you mean when I say forbidden thoughts and non-forbidden thoughts? Right now it's the middle of his job. He's supposed to be working. So either he's thinking about his neighbor's wife. He's not supposed to be thinking about his neighbor's wife. Maybe thinking about his own wife. That's also forbidden. He says, why is it forbidden to think about my own wife? She's my own wife. That's not forbidden. He says, because that's not the time right now. Somebody is paying you to work. What are you thinking about? This is what you're thinking about right now when somebody is paying you for work? You're stealing his money. Do the right thing. Work. That's what you're supposed to be doing right now. So that's what he says. Ben beiter, whether it is permissible, וכשמסיח דעתו, when a person pushes those thoughts away, מקיים לאו זה, he's fulfilling the commandment. Which commandment? To not go astray after the desires of your heart. ואמרו רז"ל, and the sages says. So, let me ask you a question now. I didn't kill today. Am I going to get points? Did I fulfill? I didn't murder.
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because you don't have a desire to kill.
Very good. Excellent. So it says, in other words, what does it mean? You cannot say, I didn't punch the guy. If you didn't want to punch the guy, if there wasn't a fight, if it wasn't a possibility, if there wasn't the situation to punch him, and you didn't punch him, you didn't push away the desires of your heart. We're talking about over here, somebody who's pushing away the desire of his heart. And notice how interesting it becomes. All of a sudden, you can have a Rasha who's internally, a Rasha means a wicked person, who's internally on a much higher level than a person who never sins. Do you see how? How?
So the person who never sins has desires to sin, whereas the Rasha, he's not doing anything, but he just has very little desires. So every once in a while he sins.
That's right. But as a person, he's a higher caliber person.
Yeah.
He doesn't have these low life desires that the other guy has all the time.
But when the opportunity comes, he'll take it.
Oh, yeah. Either take it or not, yeah, but yeah, exactly. But he didn't make a decision never to not go against God. It's very strange. And this is what the sages says. Yashav velo avar avera. If a person wanted to sin, the opportunity came, and he sat down and he didn't do it. Notnim lo sachar. God is going to give him a reward. Keilu asa mitzvah. As if he did a commandment. So you remember the question we had in the beginning? The question is, if I recognize that I'm a low life, I'm thinking about things I'm not supposed to be thinking about all day long, and that saddens me, the Alter Rebbe says, why are you sad? Don't be sad. It's another opportunity to connect to God. It doesn't mean that you are less than anybody else. You can have a person who has much less desires than you, and he is wicked. And you have much more desires than him, and you're not wicked, because you don't follow the desires of your heart. And you have much more many opportunities to connect to God in such a manner. And this is why you have to be happy. Every time a desire to do something wrong comes into a person's heart, he needs to be happy. The opposite of sad. Why is he happy? Bekiyum alav, in performing the negative commandment. Kmo bekiyum mitzvat aseh mamash. Just like in fulfilling the positive commandment. Okay. The next part, it needs an introduction. Before. It says, what's the psychology of the person to be sad? Do you have a desire for a nicer house?
Yeah.
Do you have a desire for a nicer house?
Always.
Do you have a desire for a nicer house?
No.
Okay. Really?
No, I mean,
It's a perfect house. You can think about a more perfect way to make it, to buy something new, to do.
okay, yes.
Yeah. Do you have a desire to have something nicer in your house? Everybody in this world has a desire to have something nicer in your house. If I tell you, it's not a question of money. Not a question of money. I'm giving you all the money in the world tomorrow.
I'm getting a nicer house.
You're getting a nicer house?
Yeah.
Can you picture the house?
Oh yeah.
Can you picture your house?
Yes.
Can you picture your house? You can, kind of. Can you picture your house? Yeah. I bet that none of you thought about Buckingham Palace. Much less, right?
Versailles, much nicer.
Or Versailles. Or Versailles. Why? So the question is, why didn't you want such a palace?
I can't
When-
think of a use I'd have for it.
That's okay. Why does nobody? If you're a big businessman, Elon Musk, yeah, even Elon Musk wouldn't think about it. Why not? because he knows. I'm talking. Let's say it's a beautiful. Yeah. But the idea here is why people don't. You know why? Because it doesn't belong. It's not in your league. It's not in your league. It's not in our league. The Zohar, the Gemara, they give an explanation for this kind of psychology. They say the peasant has desires for women, but he doesn't think that the king's daughter is going to get married to him. It's not in his league. When he is looking at the king's daughter, he's not thinking, oh, I'll want to have relationships with her. You know why he's not thinking that way? It's not.
Impossible.
Thank you. It's impossible. Now, we're going to see the problem of the psychology of the Beinoni. The Beinoni, which means the intermediate guy, the guy who never sins, but has desires, and he's upset because of these desires, he says the reason why he's upset is because he's haughty. He actually thinks he's better than himself. He doesn't belong to marry the king's daughter. He doesn't belong to have Buckingham Palace or to have the Versailles Palace. He cannot. It's not in his league. It's not something which can attribute to him. And the fact that he's actually thinking he's upset because he has those desires shows that he doesn't know his level. His level is that God created him such a person to have desires. He's not a righteous person. God didn't create a righteous person. And the fact that he thinks that he is a righteous person shows a lack of his understanding of himself and a lack of service of God. He's telling God, you don't know what you're doing. I shouldn't have those feelings. So let's look at it inside, and now we're going to understand the next part. Ve'adraba, and he says, and furthermore, ha'atzvut, the fact that he is sad from the fact that he has all kinds of desires that go against God all day long, the fact that you're actually upset with, hi migasut ruach, it is because you're haughty. What did you think? That you're not going to have the thoughts? What did you think? That you don't have evil inclination? Who do you think you are? She'eino makir mekomo, it says you don't know your place. You don't know your level. You don't recognize what God created over here, which creature He created. Ve'al ken yera levavo, and this is why he's upset. Al she'eino b'madrigat tzadik. It's stupid. Think about your upsetting. You know what you're upset? I'm upset that I'm not a righteous person. What do you mean you're upset that you're not a righteous person? You're not a righteous person. How can you be upset? See, if you're upset you're not better, that I can get. But over here you're upset that you're not righteous. I'll give you another example. Are you upset that you don't have Buckingham Palace? It's not I can't even be upset.
I'd sell it if they gave it.
Okay, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I said. Because you know it's not something that belongs to me. It's not something that has to be acquired by me. ועל כן ירא לבבו, and if you have sadness שאינו במדרגת צדיק, that you're not in the level of a righteous, שלצדיקים בוודאי אין נופלים להם הרהורי שטות. For the righteous people, for sure they don't have all these bad desires. כאלו, like this. כאילו היה מכיר מקומו, because if a person would know his place, that what? What is your level? What is our level? People like us, not righteous people. What is our level? שהוא רחוק מאוד ממדרגת צדיק. That we are very far away from what a righteous person is. We're not that anymore. והלוואי, forget a righteous person. I wish a Beinoni. In other words, you're fighting the wrong fight. See, we are all sinners here. We all sin all day long. And instead of working towards becoming a Beinoni, what is a Beinoni? Someone who sins less and less and less until he doesn't sin at all. We take another fight because it's easier. We feel sad that I'm not righteous. Why do you feel sad you're not righteous? Are you a Beinoni? You stopped sinning already? You picked the wrong fight. This is the problem. The fight is, have as much desires as you want. Have desires as long as you want. Just don't do it. That's what you should, that's the type of work God chose you to do. This is what God put you here on earth. Not to be righteous. He put us on earth to be a Beinoni. To have desires and not do them. That's what he gave us to say the Shema twice a day. And he told us, don't prostitute yourself after your heart. Very good. והלוואי היה בינוני ולא רשע כל ימיו. And it says, and we wish, הלוואי, may it be, that he's going to be a Beinoni and not wicked all his days. אפילו שעה אחת, even for 1 second. So it's like craziness. You know what it's like? It's like a guy in high school who weighs 85 pounds, who plays American football. Yeah? And he's upset that he's not in the NFL. Says, what are you upset you're not in the NFL? You weigh 85 pounds. First of all, get to 300 pounds, then we'll talk. You picked up the wrong upsetness. You know, it's not your level right now. First of all, make it to college football before you becoming upset that you're in the NFL. You know what? Forget college. Put on 50 pounds. Then we'll talk.
Make $1 billion, then you can buy it.
or that. But he wants to be a player. He doesn't want to be a zero. Yeah, it's like it's craziness. What's going in your heart? It says, what are you thinking? In other words, Alter Rebbe says you're thinking completely wrong. Your whole thinking is screwed up. It says, what are you upset? God created you. God created you for a purpose, to fight, to battle against your evil inclination, and you're upset. You're not the righteous. Do what God created you for. Ve'avodatam. This is what God created you. Lichbosh hayetzer, to conquer the evil inclination. Va'yirhur, and the thought, ha'oleh mehalev lamoach, that goes up from the heart to the brain. Ve'la'asiach da'ato legamre, to push it completely away. Ve'litchoto b'shtei yadayim, to push it away with both your hands. Ubechol tchiya v'tchiya, and every time you push it away, you know what you're causing. Shemadcheu mimachshavato, every time these evil thoughts come into your brain, into your heart, into your desires, and you push them away, what do? Itkafia sitra achra letata. You push away the evil forces down here on earth. In other words, you don't let evil reside on earth, inside you.
That's a big deal.
Oh, that is everything.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't do that?
The righteous.
The righteous. You know who are the soldiers that push away evil from the world? Not the righteous. We.
They're an example for us.
What they are, we're going to discuss later on. But yeah, but we are the ones who's doing. In other words, God created soldiers. And you are screaming, why I'm not the general? You're a soldier. Why are you upset? Do the work. What's the work? Fight. You were created to fight. Yes?
This manual wasn't made for tzaddikim.
This what?
Manual. This book wasn't made for
It's a book for Beinonim. Very good. It's a book for Beinonim. And you push away the evil down here, And you know what happens when you push the evil down here? This is a verse from the Zohar. When you are awakening and you do the job of a soldier down here to push the evil forces, God awakens from above. And God eliminates the evil from the higher worlds. And what does this evil from the higher worlds does? We're going to discuss about this later on in Tanya, so we're not going to explain it over here now. This evil force elevates itself like an eagle, לקיים מה שכתוב, אם תגביה כנשר וגולם, ומשם הורידך, that it goes up to the heavens like an eagle, and from over there, God brings it back down. Ne'um Hashem. He says, when evil comes up, I'm going to bring him back down. וכמו שהפליג בזוהר פרשת תרומה, just like he explains in the Zohar, בגודל נחת רוח לפניו יתברך. In the measurement of the pleasure we give God, I'm going to explain this soon. כדתקפיה סטרא אחא לטאטא, when we push away the evil down here, the istalek יקרא דקדברישרא לעילה, God becomes, I'm not going to explain what it means, but God becomes stronger in heaven, על כולו יתיר, משבחה אחרא והסתלקות דיתיר מכולה, it becomes more pronounced in all the words. Okay. So over here, we started the chapter by saying, I'm upset that I'm a lowlife. The Alter Rebbe immediately tells you, you have the wrong perspective. You're a soldier. Your job is every time that you're a lowlife, is to push these low-life desires away. That's why God created you for. And then he created tzaddikim. They have their own work. They have their own manual. They have their own book, what they have to do. You, in your foolishness, are thinking that you're a tzaddik? Why would you think that way? You stop sinning? In other words, you're a wicked person. You're a rasha. You're a wicked person all day long, and you want to jump so I don't have desires. No. It's a stupid way of thinking. That's what you say. In other words, you're fooling yourself in that sadness. What are you being sad for? Don't sin. Then we'll talk about it. After you don't sin, then we'll talk about it. If you sin all day long throughout the day, hundreds of times, and you're upset you're not a righteous person, that's stupidity. You're fighting the wrong war. And this is what he says, ולכן אל ייפול לב אדם עליו. Therefore, a person shouldn't be sad, ולא ירע לבבו מאוד, and he shouldn't be saddened. גם יהיה כן, even if it's going to be like this, כל ימיו, all his days, from the morning until night. You know what you're doing? Fighting against evil inclination. When the alarm woke up this morning, did you want to get out of bed? Most people. I didn't say if you did. If you do, I said, did you want to? so the answer is most people, they don't. So that's why you're created. You don't want to, and I'm going to do it anyway.
So I don't get points.
You don't get points. That's right. That's right. You don't get points. But who does get? But I'm sure there's many other places that you do get points. Everybody has his own points. So therefore, even if it's going to be like this the entire days, כי אולי לכך נברא, because this is why God created you for. You're a soldier. Each one of us, he has a different job in the army. Some have a job to push away the desires for women. Some have the desire to push away the desire for honor. Some have the job to push away the desire for money. Everybody has his own job in God's army. We're all different. God created us all different, each one with his own desires, so he can push it away to bring godliness down to earth, to make a dwelling place for God within ourselves. That's the job, that's the creature that God created, the Beinani. וזאת עבודתו, and this is his service. להתקפיה לסטרא אחת תמיד, to always fight as a soldier against the evil inclination. In other words, he's telling you the perspective of a soldier. You know what the perspective of a soldier? You know when the soldier is the happiest? When he serves his king. Imagine a soldier that doesn't serve his king. I'm talking about a true soldier. Someone whose entire life is to serve the king. A soldier. That's his identity. He's happiest when he can fight the wars for the king. If he's just laying idle, he's not happy. He needs to go to war. He's a soldier. So the opposite. The more time the evil inclination comes to you, the happier you should be. Because that's what a soldier does. This is who you are. This is what your life should be all about. Fighting the wars of God. Because that's what you are, the soldier. This is the perspective that the other Rebbe gives us now. A completely different perspective to the beginning of the chapter.
So you should say thank God every time that challenge comes to you.
It's 100% thank God, and even more for that. He said, that's my identity. What do you mean? If you wouldn't give it to me, I'll be upset. I want to serve God. It's like, we've seen it in films. I mean, people who've been to war know about it. You know what it's like? It's like a soldier who got wounded on the battlefield, protecting his homeland, and they're taking him away. So he says, what are you doing? What are you taking me away? I'm here to do. I'm a soldier. You know what a soldier does? He fights. You can't take me away. I have no identity unless I'm here. And you're complaining about having to fight a war? That's what you are. That's where you feel yourself the most. You should be the happiest. That's the perspective. That's your purpose. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to go, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it. The next step is even going to go deeper than this. It says, not only is it your purpose, it's a greater purpose than the tzaddik. That's the next step, than the righteous person. It says, until now you were jealous that the righteous person doesn't have those desires. If you look at it correctly, you will see that your job is more important and more likened by God than the righteous job. Let me give an introduction before we start, in order to understand the next part. There are two types of food in the world. Sweet food, sugar, honey. Those kind of food that automatically everybody likes. Can you eat? Can you sustain yourself from sugar and honey? There's another type of delicious food. Things like vinegar, things which are bitter, things which are spicy. Bitter, bitter, vinegar, chamutz. How do you say chamutz in English? Sour. When you take bitter, sour, spicy food and you turn them into delicious food, they are much more delicious than sugar. They taste 100 times better. In other words, the spiciness, the vinegar part, the sour part, the things, when you turn them over, it becomes sweeter. God has two kinds of food that he likes to eat in this world. He has food that the righteous people give him, and he has food that we give him, that he pleasures himself on. Sweet food are the righteous. The spicy, evil inclination kind of food, that you take the bitter and the spicy and the thing, and then you turn it into sweetness, that God says, this is what I truly love. Much more than what? Than this. So it says, not only you're stupid that you want to become righteous, God likes the service of the Beinoni, of the wicked, much more than he likes the service of the righteous. That's going to be the next part. ושני מיני נחת רוח לפניו יתברך למעלה, and there are two kinds of gratification, I like this word, two kinds of gratification in front of God.
What kind?
Two kinds of gratification. לפניו דרך למעלה, אחד, one of them, מביטול הסטרא אחרא לגמרי, it is from when a person completely eliminates the evil inclination. Someone like King David, who had evil inclination, and he completely destroyed it. He was left with no more. מביטול הסטרא אחרא לגמרי, והתהפכה ממרירו למתקה, and he turned it over from bitterness. In other words, King David, let's take for example, used to have bitter kind of element in his service of God. He had desires for women, let's say he wasn't supposed to have desires for, but he turned it to be he turned it in himself to completely take those evil inclinations away from him, and in the end he didn't have those desires. In other words, he changed bitterness to sweetness. ומחשוכה לנהורה, he changed darkness into light. He lived in darkness, and then he had no more darkness in him. There was only light. This is the work al yedei tzadikim, the work of whom? Of the righteous. והשנית, and the second kind of gratification that God has, itkafia sitracha. You don't destroy the evil inclination. The opposite. You use it as a spice. You take that bitterness. See what King David did. He took all the bitterness out. There was only sweetness. What we do, we don't take all the bitterness out. We leave it as a spice. And that's what's called savory food now. It's not just a sweet food. It's savory. It has vinegar in it. It has a little bit of spiciness in it. והשנית, and this,
like Indian food.
that's right. והשנית, that's right. That's exactly. And the more we'll be able to make it savory, the more he will like it. God likes spicy food. והשנית, kad itkafia sitracha, is when we push away the vinegar taste. We push it away, but we leave it. It's there as a spice. We don't eliminate it completely. בעודה בתוקפה, it's still strong, it's still strong right there. וגבורתה, it stands stronger. ומגביה עצמה כנשר, and it elevates like an eagle. ומשם מורידה השם בתורתא לטאטא. This is what God does. He takes this evil inclination and it brings it down to this lower world in a better package. I'm just going to introduce the next part. If you remember Yitzchak, our forefather? That's right, Yitzchak, our forefather. Yitzchak, our forefather, when he wanted to bless Esav, what did he tell Esav to do? It says, go into the field.
Get me my food.
what do you say? V'achen li mat'amim. And get to me savory foods. Notice, he doesn't tell you that make for me one savory food. He says, make for me savory foods. 2 types. What are the 2 types of savory food that Yitzchak wanted? Those are the 2 types of savory food. One savory food was the work of Yaakov, of Jacob. Jacob and Esau were twins. That was one type of savory food. And the other type of savory food was his kind of savory food. What was, in other words, he's telling Esau, your work in this world is no less savory. On the contrary, it's even more savory than Yaakov's work, than Jacob's work in this world. I want to because the blessing was meant for whom? For Esau it was meant for, not for Jacob. In other words, Yitzchak himself appreciated the fact that Esau battles with his evil inclination all day long. It says, this is more savory to me than what? Than what Jacob is doing. And by the way, it's very, very strange. If you look at it, it's one of the questions which we'll discuss next week. We're going to go into this. If you look at the whole situation, something doesn't make sense. Yitzchak was so righteous. It says that Yitzchak loved Esav and Rivka loved Yaakov. What is Yitzchak, the righteous person, loving a person like Esav? Now we understand the question. When it says Yitzchak loved Esav, he knew who Esav was, according to that explanation. He loved him more than he loved Yaakov. Because he realized that Esav's job in this world is more savory to God than Yaakov's job in this world. And we're going to discuss all of this, all this process of what's going on over here with the savory foods, with God's help, next week.